So hello guys, and welcome to another video. And recently, we just got the Pokemon Presents, and going into it, I was really concerned. I was thinking maybe we were gonna get another really subpar, horrible remake like Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, or something like that. Something just really like undercooked, unfinished, just like ugly looking. I was just full on expecting something like that to show up, just due to the history, like over the past few years of Pokemon. Like, they've just been pumping out so many games, like between Sword and Shield in 2019, then the DLC for that, then Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and then right after that, Legends Arceus, which ended up being pretty good, but it definitely did need like a year to a year and a half more of development. And then right after that, we got Scarlet and Violet, which was really disappointing and just really subpar. And yeah, it just seems like it's just been kind of like an never-ending cycle with just Pokemon games releasing and everything. Like, the thing is, I feel like there's definitely a lot of potential from Game Freak. They just don't have any time at all to develop these games. So they just end up being really broken and subpar and just some of the like most disappointing Nintendo published games on the Switch. Like, this is way below the standard of quality that we usually see from Nintendo. But I feel like things might be about to change. Hopefully. I'm just gonna say hopefully, because there could be something that could change within the next year. But at the Pokemon Presents, we did get a new game announcement. But the interesting thing is, it wasn't for this year, it was for next year. And hopefully when they say next year, that means like November of next year, and not like January, like Legends Arceus was. Because Arceus was announced for 2022 around the same time, back in 2021, and that ended up releasing in January, so I really hope that this is like holiday 2025, so like nearly two years away from now, so it gets enough development time, I would say. That would be like nearly 4 years of development, considering the fact that this probably started development after Legends Arceus was finished and everything. So, yeah, I really hope this gets the amount of development time that it needs. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the actual game itself. So it's called Pokemon Legends ZA, which is really interesting. It takes place in Luminos City in the Kalos region. So I'm glad that the Kalos region is getting more recognition and representation, since I really like Pokemon X and Y, and I feel like they're definitely some of the most underrated Pokemon games, even nowadays, even with like nostalgia for it and everything. But I think they're great games, and unfortunately, they didn't get a third game or anything like kind of building on top of them at all. Like, I think it's really the only games in the series, like the only generation that didn't have that. So it's kind of unfortunate that like they really weren't able to build upon like the story and some of the lore of the Kalos region. So I'm glad that Pokemon Legends ZA will finally be doing that. I feel like this game is almost like essentially basically the Pokemon Z that has been like kind of circling around since like when Pokemon X and Y released, like around that time, like people were expecting a Pokemon Z to happen, but it never did. So I guess we're technically finally getting that now, which I think is pretty cool. And like, basically they said, for one of the things that we do know about the game, it will be taking place entirely within the city. And to some, I feel like that might sound a little disappointing, but I actually think that's a really good idea. Like, for one, they're kind of limiting the scope of what they have to work with. Like, I mean, yeah, they could make the city pretty large, and I hope they do. there are like multiple different games that do have like a large, like have a game take place within a large city and everything. I mean, one that comes to mind is GTA. They could possibly handle it like that. I'm not sure if it's going to be like entirely within the city or like contain some of the outskirts and things. I mean, I guess it's safe to assume that like 95% of the map will be the city. So, like, I guess that's a good thing to keep in mind, but I think there's a lot they could do with that. Like, if they make it like a life-size city, that would make a lot of sense. And I feel like with that, it kind of makes sense for the development time that this is likely going to have, which is about like 4.5 years, maybe 3.5 years at the like the absolute shortest. I feel like that's definitely a decent amount of time to make like a game that takes place within like a city or like a singular large location like that. Because when they're kind of being too ambitious and make a world like Scarlet and Violet within like 3 years, there's going to be a lot of issues with that. Like we could see in Scarlet and Violet, aside from like the bugs and like all of the visual issues with the game, there was also like a lack of level scaling, which definitely hurt the design of the game. So when they have like a city area to work with, I feel like they could maybe use that limitation to create something more interesting within a slightly shorter amount of time than they would to create like a big, large open world. I mean, this is still technically going to be open world from what it seems, because it is like a Legends game and everything. In the Pokemon Legends Arceus, it wasn't full open world, but it was like semi-open world in the areas. But I assume it's going to be like somewhat similar to that, but this time it probably will be one large area. So yeah, I think that's actually a pretty good idea that it will be taking place within one city. But yeah, and another thing that's pretty interesting about the trailer is that they didn't really show any gameplay footage. Well, they didn't at all. They really just showed like a teaser, which is a good sign, because with Legends Arceus, they showed off gameplay when they first revealed it. So with this, it's probably not coming out at the beginning of 2025. I feel like that definitely makes it more likely for this to release in holiday 2025. I just really hope that's the case. But yeah, with that in mind, with the fact that this is possibly going to release towards the end of 2025, I think that's a pretty good sign of things to come for the Pokemon franchise. Because they might actually be taking a lot of that criticism into consideration, and also like the fact that like the dev time for games like Scarlet and Violet was like completely unreasonable. And I feel like Game Freak might have been realizing that, and I feel like Nintendo might have been realizing the quality of these games as well. There has to be a limit at some point. Like, they can't keep going with these like really like visually horrible looking games, and also just like buggy games in general. Like, there has to be a limit for this. Like, between Nintendo, Pokemon Company, and Game Freak, there has to be like a point where they just have to reevaluate everything and kind of like change what they've been doing. And I feel like this might be what they're doing. I really hope it is. I really hope this game like releases like towards the end of 2025, and like it ends up being like fairly polished and everything. I just wish this like is at least a little more than the bare minimum in terms of quality and everything. Because it's been so long, like, that we've just been getting like just Pokemon games year after year, and they've just been like over time they've just been getting worse and worse in quality. So I really hope this extra time definitely gives it like the much needed like boost in quality. And yeah, after that, I just hope they do like like a 3 to 4 year minimum between the releases of Pokemon games. And I mean, I'm not talking about like just like remakes and main games. I just mean like just in general, like anything to release like 3 to 4 years minimum. Like maybe for like the new generations, they should give them like 6 years probably. Like I think like a game like Scarlet and Violet, I feel like that game would have needed like 6 years of development to be fully realized and everything. But yeah, I just really hope they continue to give these games more like development time. And yeah, I just really hope we've broken out of that cycle now and we're actually getting like higher quality releases less frequently. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Twitter if you want to. Goodbye.